Some of you may be too young to remember this, but if I say to you, Sally Field and the Academy Awards, what two sentences come to mind right away? You like me. You really like me. No, Sally, we don't, but that's, no, never mind. I mean, look in the mirror each morning at that person that seems to goof up our lives probably more than anybody else. That person that seems to get us into more trouble than anybody else. Can we look at that person and say, I like you. I really like you. Because our starting point in growing in the love of God is accepting that God loves us and accepts us exactly as we are. There are so many times in confession, in talking individually with people, when they will constantly make reference to the fact that they're not the person that they should be. And I remind them that the person that they should be is kind of an ideal. You know, when they look at that person and compare it to the person that they are, you're being aware of what's not there. And it's always a losing proposition. The person that I should be is not somebody that God loves. Because the person that I should be does not exist, except in my mind. God loves me, accepts me, embraces me as I am, with all of my faults, my shortcomings, my stupidities. I hope and pray God even accepts me with all my lame jokes, but I won't find that out for a while. If God accepts us, He meets us right where we are in our lives. Not, He says, well, when you get to some higher level of goodness, then we'll talk. No. Right here, right now. If God can accept us, why is it that we have such a hard time accepting ourselves? A man came back from a weekend retreat experience, and when a neighbor asked him how it had gone, he said, I died. Puzzled, the neighbor asked him what he meant, and he answered, you see, I went to this thing not knowing what to expect. But in the process of that long weekend, I discovered that I had spent my whole life hiding behind a bunch of masks. I realized that I had never even let my wife see me as I really was. I'd been playing games with her, playing games with my children, and playing games with others, never letting anybody know who I really am. The worst of it was to discover that I didn't even know myself. I was not in touch with my own honest feelings about myself. And as all this was being exposed over the weekend, I died over and over again. He went on, "It's a painful thing for a middle-aged man to discover that he's not even in touch with his own honest feelings about himself. I'm convinced that I had to go through this death experience in order to become the new person that I hope to be now. Unless the grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it produces much fruit." If we can give up for Lent and for life our fear that I'm not really good enough as me, I'm not acceptable as me, so what kind of an act can I put on? What kind of a mask can I wear so that people will be more likely to then accept that person? And most of all, how sad if I have to put on all kinds of masks, play all kinds of other roles before I think I can accept myself. I've talked throughout this season of Lent many times about why do we bother with some of these little picky, dinky things that we say we're going to give up for Lent. And then when Easter comes, we pick them up again. But what about the fear that makes us afraid to be ourselves? The fear that makes us afraid to see ourselves as God sees us. And God sees us always through the eyes of love. God always focuses on the good. Maybe what will bring us to new life is when we let that fear die. We trust what God sees in us and what God says to us more than we trust our own fears and demons that are running around inside. Because it's then that we can grow and bear much fruit.